Yo, what's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Gold Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and today we are taking a look at the New York Islanders going into the off-season and what is in store for the Islanders. Now, the easy answer has been the same as it's been for the last couple years for the Islanders. What do they need? Yeah, they could probably use another defenseman. Yeah, they could probably use another depth scoring forward. But let's be honest, before they worry about getting another depth goal scorer, they need a top high-end goal scorer to play alongside Bo Horvat and Matt Barzal. And that was very apparent through most of the season. It was pretty highlighted during the Stanley Cup playoff run because the Islanders didn't have the scoring help alongside Horvat and Barzal. And the teams they're going to play against, especially come playoff time, you're going to play teams that have the scoring depth, and the Islanders just cannot compete. So we're going to take a look today at two players in particular. In my opinion, it really only comes down to one player in particular. We're going to take a look at that here today. So start off, everybody's been talking about Mitch Marner again, and obviously there's a connection, right? Lou Lamoriello was there with the Toronto Maple Leafs when they developed him, when they signed him, so there is a working relationship between Marner and the Islanders management, so it is possible. But here's the problem. I don't think the Leafs are going to trade Marner. Is everybody saying this and that about Marner getting traded? There has to be some kind of one-for-one trade because I just do not see the Leafs going and acquiring a bunch of first-round picks and prospects for a guy like Marner. And then the second question is that even out there for Marner right now? Is a team willing to trade first-round picks and prospects for Mitch Marner right now? And that's kind of the combination of issues. I think ideally for the Leafs, you're looking for a trade where you get a one-for-one trade, where you trade Marner for a really high-level defenseman. I think that's really what the Leafs need here, and we've been talking about it long enough. We've criticized them for this long enough. That's what they need. So with that to the side, unless the Islanders are willing to trade one of their top three defensemen, I would say at this point, whether it's like Pelech, Pulock, or Dobson, there's no Marner deal happening. And I don't see the Islanders doing that. So, the other option happens to be in Winnipeg. I've talked about this earlier this offseason, but I think the Islanders should really be taking a look at a player in Winnipeg, Danish forward Nikolaj Ehlers. Now, Nikolaj Ehlers is a player that the Islanders should absolutely be targeting. For all the right reasons, this is the type of player that can not only score goals, he takes a ton of shots on net, and he's fast enough and has the speed in transition from defense to offense to keep up with Barzal and Horvat. And I think that's glaringly obvious that the Islanders need a player that can keep up with those guys. So, kind of looking at Nikolaj Ehlers, there's things to like about him. There's things to be concerned about. So, first things first, you got to figure out if he's going to waive his no-move clause. Now, I think the good thing here, if you're an Islanders fan, is in the event that Nikolaj Ehlers is available, the good news is, if he were to sign with the Islanders, he would have to waive a no-move clause to come to the Islanders, which automatically, if he's willing to waive his no-move clause to come to the Islanders, there's probably a pretty good sign that he wants to stay there and sign a long-term deal. His contract ends next summer. He'll be a UFA July 1st of 2025. So that's a year away now, I know. It's a crazy thought. But if he's willing to waive his no-move now, it's probably indicative that he's willing to sign an extension here with the Islanders long term. So that's one of the positives. Like the list of other things I said on the ice, I really like about him. There is some negatives, though. So the first negative is the Islanders are not going to be the only team going after Nikolaj Ehlers. You look at the market right now for goal scorers that are available, right? That teams are actively trading away. It's basically Marner and Ehlers. And that's it. And I don't think a lot of people are going to be going after Mitch Marner because they know the value that could be on the table there, and they're going to very quickly say, I think I'll pass. And we're going to see what happens with Ehlers first. So Ehlers is actually the top target here, which also means his value is going to be extraordinarily high for the player that you're getting. With that said, I think it's one of those things where the Islanders are desperate enough, and they have to be willing to make that move. Now, like I said, the Islanders aren't the only team in that sweepstakes. I heard a lot of links recently. The Islanders have been linked. The Los Angeles Kings looking to add more scoring, right? They're one of those teams that it was pretty apparent they need more goal scoring on that squad. And the Tampa Bay Lightning. Uh-oh. Now, the good news is, because of the Tampa Bay Lightning, that would, if I had to assume, I would say that's the destination Nikolaj Ehlers would most likely want to go to, right? The juggernaut that has been the Tampa Bay Lightning for the past decade. And it's really warm compared to Winnipeg. A little bit different of an environment, right? So, right off the bat, LA or Tampa or New York, I would say he'd probably want to choose one of the other two over New York. But here's the other thing. Like I said, do they have the money to sign him? You know, the LA Kings and the Tampa Bay Lightning kind of in a cap crunch. So if Winnipeg is willing to make a deal there, they're going to have to take on a salary coming back the other way. If it's Tampa Bay's case, it might end up being a guy like Nick Paul. If it's LA, it might be somebody that they don't really want to take. And again, it's kind of interesting because they already traded for Pierre-Luc Dubois from Winnipeg. But could we see some kind of situation where maybe Mikey Amadio comes back to... comes back the other way. Like, there's ways they could maybe make that deal work. And same thing for the Islanders. If the Islanders were to make this deal, they'd probably want to move some salary back. So I would say maybe, a guy like Pajot would go to Winnipeg. So there's a lot of intangibles here. And that's why I'm trying to preface this, that as much as I'd love for the New York Islanders to acquire Nikolaj Ehlers, and they should be doing everything possible to try and acquire him, the reality is, A, there's not much of a market there. There's a lot of teams going after very few players available. And B, it's all the intangibles. Does he want to play there? Do the Winnipeg Jets like what the Islanders have? Do the Islanders like what the Jets have? I would say so, Nikolaj Ehlers. Does Ehlers want to sign there? There's so much involved in this, but I think it could happen. So we're going to go on the trade machine today. But before we do that, we're going to take a look at his numbers. Nikolaj Ehlers, here we go. Pretty talented hockey player, right? There's a reason why teams are knocking at the door for Nikolaj Ehlers. And I think the thing you have to remember with what he's capable of, right? 61 points, 82 games. He's almost got 500 points in his career. He's almost a point-per-game player over his 600 games in the National Hockey League. That's pretty impressive. That's definitely no slouch. But like I said, that also means his value is going to be extraordinarily high. And, I think that's kind of where the Jets are in a crossroads here, because for the Dubois trade, they had to take on a lot of players. In this deal, I think it's going to be something similar, because I just don't think there's going to be... The teams that are trading for Nikolaj Ehlers, I don't think are going to be trading because they have a ton of prospects and draft picks available. That's not any of the situations for the Islanders, Kings, or the Lightning. So, it might end up being one of those things where, that might be a disadvantage for the Jets. And they also don't have much leverage, because if Ehlers... what's the reason they're trading Ehlers? Is because he's a year away from UFA, and there's a very likelihood chance he doesn't want to return to Winnipeg. So if that's the case, well, then you're kind of losing a little bit of your leverage you have here. So, like I said, at the end of the day, I think the Islanders, if you're looking at this from a pragmatic, extremely unbiased situation, the Islanders are not the only team in on this. And I know it'll be frustrating when/if the Islanders don't get Nikolaj Ehlers, but you have to accept the Islanders are not the only team in on this sweepstakes. So let's start off. Let's just do some hypotheticals, okay? So just for fun, let's throw on the trade machine here on Cap Friendly. Thank you for the content here. So we have the Islanders' first and second round pick. I think that's off the board immediately. Now, I know, it sucks. But again, if the Islanders were the only team in on here, they might be able to get away with just giving up that first round pick here. But they're not. Now here's another one that I wonder, depending on what happens with the Jets' defense, could they be looking to add another young defenseman? And Samuel Bolduc fits that bill. I really like Bolduc. He reminds me a lot of Johnny Boychuk when he was with the Islanders. I think he would be a really nice addition there. It's one of those things where I look at some of the other younger players on the Islanders. I really don't think that Winnipeg would be all that interested in any of them. And maybe they could take a look at a guy like Simon Holmstrom, but I don't know how much is there. Ruslan Ishkov, you wonder if he is a player that, he only played one game during the regular season with the Islanders, the only game being the 82nd game on the schedule. You wonder how much does Ishkov want to come back to the Islanders? So in particular, if I was looking at another forward, let's just say hypothetical, right? it would be either Holmstrom or Ruslan Ishkov. So let's just say it's Ishkov. So Ishkov goes to the Winnipeg Jets. So now you've got a first, a second, Samuel Bolduc, Ruslan Ishkov. Now salary. How does the salary look in this deal? So for the Jets, you're trading away Nikolaj Ehlers. And in that event, let's see if we could get to that $6 million for Ehlers. Where is our boy, Nikolaj Ehlers? Boom. There we go. So there's Nikolaj Ehlers. So now you look at the money coming the other way. There you go. The Islanders are $3.6 million over the salary cap. So that means that's where the salary has to be picked up here. Now, there's two things the Islanders could do here. The first thing we could see the Islanders do with the Jets, is there a way that they could retain some of the salary on Nikolaj Ehlers? And that's not necessarily the easiest thing here. But if there's a way you could retain some salary, the problem with that is it's still, let's say Winnipeg ate up 50% of its salary, took $3 million for next season, which I don't think they'd likely do here. The Islanders, the value for Ehlers would go up tremendously. And the Islanders would still be $600,000 over the salary cap ceiling. Now the Islanders could make another trade to move out some of the salary, trading a Pajot either in this deal or in another deal, and that kind of alleviates that. Or we could see something, maybe something like this. Maybe there's a three-way trade here. Is there a team that's willing to take a third-party asset here? Now, I don't know who that team would be. I think the easy one, just for fun, let's just say it's Utah. So Utah finds a way here to jump into the deal. They're looking to get more draft picks and prospects. Let's say the Islanders threw in somebody into the deal. Let's say it was a Pajot. So the Islanders, as much as I don't like to say that, I think Pajot would be the guy to go in this deal. And Pajot would be going to Utah. So that's what you're looking at now. Now the salaries are all pretty much okay. I know Arizona, they're $5 million over, but you have to remember their situation's a little different. They have a lot of guys on LTIR, things like that. So that money isn't as much of an issue as it looks. Their salary isn't that bad. What are we looking at here? So that way the Islanders don't have to retain the salary on the Ehlers deal. So that's what you have there. Then, at this point, really you're trading a sweetener if you're the Islanders. You're trading a sweetener to Arizona because they're doing this deal. So the Islanders would, let's just say, just for BS, they throw in their 4th round pick. That 4th round pick ends up going to Utah. So the final deal, the Islanders acquire Nikolaj Ehlers, no money retained by the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets lose Nikolaj Ehlers, and they acquire Samuel Bolduc, Ruslan Ishkov, a 1st and 2nd round pick of the Islanders, a 2024 1st this year, 2025 2nd next year. And then Utah gets Pajot and a 4th round pick. So, it's not the best situation for the Islanders because they're losing a really good center there in Pajot. And they're trading a 4th round pick to move his salary, which sucks. But the reality of the situation is the Islanders are in a situation where there is a situation now with a guy, let's say they keep Ishkov and they throw Holmstrom in the deal. Or let's just say it goes the other way. Let's say it is Ruslan Ishkov in this deal. Well, they still have guys down the middle that can play. Kyle McLean proved he could be a center. So now you have Matt Barzal, Bo Horvat, Brock Nelson, Kyle McLean, and you still have Casey Zizekas. Now, he played on the Islanders' top line, but if Ehlers comes into the fold, well, now he's no longer on that top line. So you technically still have 5 centers on this team, trading away Ruslan Ishkov and Jean-Gabriel Pajot. So the Islanders are in a situation where they have a large amount of center depth that they can make that deal work, and it's able to kind of do what they need it to do. And I think that is the situation here for the Islanders. This is a realistic situation. I know Islander fans have talked about, well, what if they bought out the rest of Anders Lee's deal? If they traded Brock Nelson? the reality is, Brock Nelson has a full no movement clause. I don't see him waiving it to go to any other team than Minnesota. And you want to talk about a team that is very cap constrained right now, it is the Minnesota Wild. They're still dealing with the penalties and the fallout from the Ryan Suter, Zach Parise buyouts. So they're in a situation where they just don't have the salary to take either Anders Lee or Brock Nelson. So the Islanders aren't going to be getting the easy salary cap dump there. And that's kind of the situation here. I want to know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of this? I think it's one of those things where it's an overpayment for Nikolaj Ehlers. But again, you have to remember these other teams, right? Tampa Bay doesn't have many first or second round picks. LA does, but I think they would almost rather keep them and try and figure. And they did trade a lot in the Dubois trade. So I think it's one of those things where the Islanders, if they're willing to trade both the first, the second, and two of those middling prospects in Bolduc and either Holmstrom or Ishkov or whoever it ends up being, the Islanders could find a way to get that deal to work. Bring in Nikolaj Ehlers, hopefully sign him to a long-term extension, and now you're looking at a much improved Islanders scoring depth with, keeping, and this is a big thing too, I think the Islanders keeping Kyle McLean out of the trade is probably one of the biggest parts of this, because I think Kyle McLean could come back on a fairly cheap deal for the Islanders, is a lot cheaper than Jean-Gabriel Pageau for a similar role, and the Islanders bring in Ehlers. There you go. So, of course, I want to know what you guys think down below. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you again next time.